Everybody, I have a question for you. What is your ultimate guilty pleasure movie? A guilty pleasure is something that we all have. It's something that we know is not very good. It's probably quite terrible if we look at it objectively. But my God, we love it so much. I have some amazing guilty pleasure movies that I really like. Most notably like things like Flash Gordon, I really love. I love video game movies. A lot of them are guilty pleasure movies as well. And guilty pleasure movies are great fun. It's a chance that we can enjoy something we know is terrible, but still enjoy it anyway. We can support it, we can love it. It's our sort of own little thing, a guilty pleasure movie that we can enjoy and celebrate in our own way. So that made me answer the question, is there really some guilty pleasure James Bond movies? And weird enough, I think there potentially is. We talk a lot about the James Bond series, and a lot of people talk about it like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's good. But there are, let's not deny, some, let's just say, Bond movies that aren't as good as other James Bond movies. And some of them, a lot of people consider to maybe potentially be guilty pleasure movies. So I wanted to ask on the Bond Geek channel today is, what is if we could analyse the most guilty pleasure James Bond movie? But before we get into that, everybody, can I just ask, if you haven't already, why not consider subscribing to the channel? We're trying to reach 1,000 followers before the end of the year, and it'd be really great if you could like and comment and subscribe down below to support this channel and for the future content and the previous contents on here. Without further ado, let's go on to what I think is a lot of people would consider one of the most top guilty pleasure James Bond movies, Die Another Day. Now, I start with Die Another Day here because, in my opinion, this is my guilty pleasure James Bond movie. I can admit that Die Another Day isn't really one of the, should we say, the greatest pieces of cinematic work in the Bond franchise. However, that being said, I really do enjoy this movie. There are a lot of things I really love in this movie, mainly like the pre-title sequence of the hovercraft chase. I love Toby Stephens' Gustav Graves. I really like the characters like Miranda Frost and Zhao. I love the car chase in Iceland. They're all really great. But that being said, there is such stupid things like the invisible car, Project Icarus, the robot suit. Some of the dialogue is terrible. In fact, a lot of the times the story is just designed that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And if you look at Die Another Day in the pantheon of Bond movies, a lot of the times with a lot of people, it will be ranked quite low in the series. But my God, this is a film out of all the films in the franchise I like to watch again and again and again. What I think makes this film an ultimate guilty pleasure, apart from the definition of a guilty pleasure, is the fact that actually this film really didn't just half-ass things. It chose a direction and a style, and it really went with it. And you can't deny that the film didn't do that. Looking at Die Another Day, and be honest with yourself, do you come out of watching Die Another Day and actually feel that you have been enjoyed and entertained by this film? And every time, the answer for me is solidly yes. I will say that this film isn't one of the best films in the franchise. I will point out its flaws religiously, but I'll still recommend, in my weird way, to definitely watch this film, because for me, it is the ultimate guilty pleasure James Bond movie. But there are others in the franchise which I think have been sort of coined to be, if you will, potential guilty pleasure films in the series. And let's go way back to, I think, one of the earliest guilty pleasure movies in the Bond franchise, which is Diamonds Are Forever. Diamonds Are Forever, again, it's not really for me potentially a guilty pleasure, but this film, what I've seen online, does actually have quite a lot of love and quite a few followers. A lot of people enjoy the fact of the, if you will, the Las Vegas style of James Bond. They love the diamond satellite. They love Charles Gray Blofeld being so camp and over the top. This film does actually have its real sort of, if you will, cult following, and people do tell me, oh, you know, this film is terrible, but I do love it. Guilty pleasure. Again, there are some really great things actually in Diamonds Are Forever. Granted, not that many in my opinion, but there is still some really fun, entertaining things in Diamonds Are Forever. And the comparisons between Diamonds Are Forever and Die Another Day are very similar. If you look at the sort of things that happen in both films, the sort of style and tone and direction they were going for, it does follow a similar vibe. So, looking at that from that perspective, let me ask you all this as well. Is there such thing as, within a subgenre of the Bond franchise, the guilty pleasure style of Bond films? Diamonds Are Forever was trying to recreate the success and the style and tone of Goldfinger. Now, Goldfinger is considered one of the utter greats in the Bond franchise. Me, myself, I believe that very much so. But Diamonds Are Forever, if you will, compared to that, really misses the mark, yet it still leaves an indelible impression after it has been. People often talk a lot about not really liking this film, from Blofeld dressing up as a woman, and so many other things like the moon buggy mobile and stuff, but it does have its own unique identity, and people do talk to me online, say, you know what, Diamonds of the Day might not be one of my utter favourites, but this is something I like to watch again and again and again. So again, I think this could be also potentially a guilty pleasure James Bond movie. But there are other films, again, similar to the pattern of the two films we just had, that do fit this mould. And the next one on my list would definitely be A View to a Kill. A View to a Kill is very easily and understandably why some people can see it as a guilty pleasure. This film is bat crazy, with Christopher Walken as a bad guy and Grace Jones as Mayday. You've got a 57-year-old Roger Moore still playing Bond, trying to seduce Tanya Roberts. This film is just disgusting and brilliant and mesmerizing, and you can't look at it all at the same time, with ridiculous gags, sometimes ridiculous moments in this film. It's, to me, A View to a Kill is another perfect example of this potential guilty pleasure subgenre within the James Bond franchise. Again, A View to a Kill, like Diamonds Are Forever and Die Another Day, does have a cult following. I'm one of them included. I think definitely outside of Die Another Day, A View to a Kill has always been, for me growing up with James Bond, a bit of a guilty pleasure James Bond movie. I really love A View to a Kill. I actually think it's really, really great. The only thing that really holds it back is the fact that it's 57-year-old Roger Moore, which sort of overtakes everything in the movie and becomes the main central focus of the film to a loss of the general audience. A View to a Kill really defies, if you will, the concept people have of the James Bond series is still like bad pizza. Even when it's bad, it's good. Now, I still firmly believe that A View to a Kill should be celebrated as a bit of a guilty pleasure movie. But even after the three I've mentioned, there's still one other that people do consider a guilty pleasure, and for the life of me, I don't understand why, which is Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies, in my opinion, is actually one of Pierce Brosnan's best James Bond films. Granted, I think the film is a bit too action-heavy than spy thriller, but I really love Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's one of the best films in modern recent years. I love the villain, I love the story, I love the characters in Tomorrow Never Dies. I think this film is just absolutely brilliant. But I'm in the minority about that. A lot of people really comment on the things I said that were a bit of an issue when it comes to Tomorrow Never Dies, and really discard it as a bit of a forgettable James Bond. However, like the others, there is a bit of a really strong following for the love of Tomorrow Never Dies and letting it have its moment in the sun. So is it really a guilty pleasure? Granted, Tomorrow Never Dies in the general population, generally upon the Bond community, people see Goldeneye and World's Not Enough as being superior over Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day. But is Tomorrow Never Dies really a guilty pleasure when it does have, still to this day, a bit of a still solid mainstream love of the film? A lot of non-sort of real hardcore Bond fans like ourselves really gravitate, I find, towards Tomorrow Never Dies. It's one they remember. It's one that they love. It's not one that's really mostly forgotten like Diamonds Are Forever and View to a Kill and Die Another Day. So does it really count as one? Well, honestly, I think it actually still does. Tomorrow Never Dies is very much divided upon the fan community. Me, as I've said previously, I really love it, but a lot of people really don't. People say to me, as it's a bit of a minority love, it could be counted as a guilty pleasure, which is a fair argument to say. So looking at the four films that we've got, which is Diamonds Are Forever, A View to a Kill, Tomorrow Never Dies, and Die Another Day, which in my opinion is the ultimate guilty pleasure James Bond film? I'm going back to right at the beginning of this episode. For me, it is Die Another Day. Die Another Day encapsulates to me what the essence is of a guilty pleasure movie is in every way, shape or form. It is probably the worst film out of the previous four I've mentioned, but my god, it's the one I love to watch the most again and again and again. But I want to know, everyone, what in your opinion is your favourite guilty pleasure James Bond movie? What is the movie not many people talk about or maybe speak so highly of, but you love to watch it and you want to celebrate it? I want to know. Comment down below and tell me your thoughts and opinions on that. As always, everyone, my name's Henry Stevens and this is the Bond Geek. Goodbye.